What made you think, oh, I better go to that room? Because your hand was the first one I saw, and the first person in the room always wins the prize. You just won Power Sales right now. What's your name? What's your name? You will. Yael, thank you. It didn't change from a moment ago. Can we please hear it for Yael? One, please. What is one thing that
we were just hoping to have become even more persuasive than we already are.
Okay, good. And can you be more persuasive? No, can you be more specific?
Just doing it in a way to where it's not an annoyance, but it's making people think that it's their idea.
Okay, perfect. And here's my truth to that, Yael, and the rest of the table. We want to extend our hand at every opportunity. The more that we can help someone else feel safe and smart, and by the way, this works at home as much as it works at work, the more that we can help them to feel confident with us, the more likely they are to go along with what we're recommending. So the little bit of that I want to kind of have you consider is to make them think it's their idea. You're not going to hear manipulative stuff from me. What you're going to hear are ideas to truly enable the best business conversation. Not to fake them out, not to be manipulative. Though truly everything is manipulative that we do, we are trying to extend our hand in a way to continue the conversation with us. Okay, somebody over here, tell me what you are hopeful you're going to learn. Nothing? Okay, yes, thank you.
So for us, we talked about persuasion in the sense of keeping control of the conversation and keeping it moving forward, especially if you have an agenda or working on a project and you're the captain of that team.
Okay, perfect, and I love that, keeping it moving forward, and that's the goal. Some of us think the goal is to be right. Some of us think the goal is to win, and if that's what we think the goal is, it's going to be much, much harder to get there. So to keep advancing the communication, to keep communicating in a way that allows the other human being and us to have dignity so that we can come to the best result. Okay, one more please. What else? How about over here? Someone around here? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, good idea. We talked about how to communicate and organize our ideas in a way that we can then present to other people in a way that we can understand and say, hey, yeah, I did that.
Okay, good. So the idea that makes sense to me, we are going to talk about. We want it always to make sense to them. And that made me think of something else. For any of you who have ever said to another human being, does that make sense? Please stop. I mean, what are you asking? Are you asking if your words were good enough? Or if they're smart enough to figure out what it is that you're trying to say? So we are going to communicate in a way that is going to be emotionally appealing. Okay, excellent. Is there anyone else who wants to shout out, and I'll repeat what it is that you came here hopeful that you were going to get? Because maybe there's something different, something that you're... Like yesterday, somebody said that they wanted to stop doing elevator pitches. And that led to an entirely different conversation. Anyone in here interested in hearing anything about that? Elevator pitches? No, I'm not seeing overwhelming. Okay, fine. Okay, don't do it. That's my quick answer. Because an elevator pitch, the premise of an elevator pitch is for you to be able to throw up an, oh, wait, first, it started when there was an executive floor, and we didn't, us underlings didn't have privilege to that executive floor, and so we would have to, if we were lucky enough to get into the elevator with someone of importance, we would just start talking, hopeful that they might invite us to carry on and get off the floor where they were getting off. That is not going to work any longer. What we want to do is pique somebody's interest. And how do we do that? Well, one way of doing that is when somebody says, what do you do? Or any variation of that. What does your company do? Any variation of that. We begin with, thank you for asking. Now, why do you think I would begin with thank you for asking when someone's saying, yeah, what do you do? Goes back to what we were just talking about. If we can help them to feel safe and smart, they could be doing anything in the world at that moment, but they're asking to learn about us. So if I can help them to feel safe and smart, I open them to more learning. And anyone who wants wants more information on that, afterward I have plenty of time. Okay, so last question for now, and that is, what's your greatest obstacle to being more persuasive? So the person at your table whose birthday is closest to today in either direction, if you would please become the group leader. You have 1 minute. Your job is to make sure everyone at the table speaks. What's the greatest obstacle? Go. Okay, so what are the obstacles? Who wants to give me an obstacle to being persuasive? I saw your hand first, so you just won first. What's your name? Sandra, you just won how to say it to sell it. Let's hear it for Sandra. So go ahead and give us one.
Lack of content knowledge.
Okay, so either we don't have lack of content knowledge or they don't, and we don't know how to express it in a way that's going to open them up to our knowledge. Interesting that you said that, because in the Survey Monkey response, somebody said, do I really need to prepare my presentation, or should I just try to wing it? Lack of content knowledge has destroyed more presentations than probably anything. So, yes, it's absolutely true. Yeah, thanks.
Lack of direct connection to the ultimate decision maker.
Okay, yes, that's true. If we can't ask the right questions, if we don't ask the right questions, and we don't get, or we're totally blocked from getting that to that decision maker. And that brings up another point too, because are we making these people feel confident enough with us to introduce us to that decision maker? So we'll talk more about that. What else? Yeah, loud, please.
Fear of rejection or pushing it too far.
Thank you, and I love both of those. So fear of rejection and pushing the subject too far, pestering, which actually brings me to, again, another point. So Jason Ware, how many of you know Jason? Okay, so Jason and I were flying together. Jason is a planner, and he said, Sue, you have to do a session on getting people to send normal, decent emails when they're inviting us to their events. Suppliers, he said. We decided to call it, thank you for applauding, you've apparently gotten the same. Jason sent me the emails while we were on the same flight from Phoenix to here, and he was right. I mean, some of you are stalking. So, no, it's true. And then you wonder why they're saying no. So, yes, so making sure that we communicate in a way that is respectful and is relevant to them. And watch for that session. Jason and I are going to propose it. Okay, so what else? Give me one or two more. Yes, loud, please.
Being intimidating?
That we're either intimidated or we're intimidating.
I'd say both.
Okay, good. Thank you. And what else? One more, please. Yes, way in the back. Way in the back.
Being able to articulate your point.
Okay, good. That we just can't articulate the point either because we're nervous or for some other reason. Maybe we're not prepared, or maybe we keep getting shot down. We're going to talk about that today. So I agree with everything that you're saying. I also think that our plates are overfull, and that's overflowing, and that's a reason that we can't spend time on the aspects that we need to. We can't be as thoughtful as we would like to be. We're moving really, really fast. It keeps us from being persuasive. But really, Jimmy Kimmel, video now, Jimmy Kimmel really gives us another reason why we're not as persuasive as we can be. So this is from last year's Super Bowl.
All over the world for the Super Bowl, so we thought it'd be a good time for something we call the scooter poll. Now, this is where we send our writer Arthur out before the game to talk to fans and see whether or not they notice that he was mispronouncing the Super Bowl. Check this out.
How exciting is it for you to be down here at Scooter Bowl?
It's pretty exciting. The adrenaline's up a bit.
What do you think are the keys for the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl?
The defense.
How excited are you for the Scooter Bowl?
Very exciting, extremely exciting.
What do you think are the keys for the Seahawks winning the Groupon deal tomorrow?
Get a run the ball.
Which team do you think will win the marsupial tomorrow?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go with the Patriots.
How excited are you for the useful crowd?
Well, we're pretty stoked.
I gotta tell you, do you have any bets going on the Jewish Pro?
I don't remember the best. No, I don't.
What do you think are the keys for the Seahawks winning the Goober Hole?
I think the keys are gonna be our offense.
What do you think about the controversy surrounding the Scoobity Boo Boo?
I mean,
Okay. And even though other people don't listen, it's not just other people. It's that we don't listen. And the more that we can listen, the more persuasive that we can be. How many of you remember Seinfeld? Seinfeld? Okay, so George Costanza, I love this. He said, it's not them, it's us. Because when we try to be persuasive, too often what we're really doing is being self-focused. But too often what we're doing is not giving them any compelling reason to do what it is that we're proposing, to move along with us at the pace we want to move along. And one other thing is, we often don't communicate with respect. Okay, you got it. And so what we're going to talk about today are very specific strategies, very specific tactics and strategies to ensure that you are communicating, giving them a compelling reason to do what you want. So the first thing that we need to consider, of course, and most of you already know this, is that everything has to revolve around them. Jim Collins tells a great story in his book, Good to Great. How many of you have read that? Okay, so about when he was at university, and he didn't feel like he was interesting enough, and so he approached Dr. John Gardner, who is a professor emeritus and former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, and he said to him, you know, I really would like to be more interesting. And by the way, Jim Collins says that Dr. Gardner's response to him changed his life. And what he said to him was, it occurs to me, Jim, that you spend too much time trying to be interesting. He said, why don't you invest more time being interested? And though we do need to be interesting to keep people's attention, if we're not interested, if we're not interested in them, in their success, in their happiness, in their getting the result, the initiative that they want, we can't possibly get best results. And so, let's see how Harvey gets the results that he wanted. Video. Absolutely everything came from their perspective. He made sure that he was relevant to them. And though this seems like a slam dunk, we often think we're being relevant, and really what we're talking about are our own agendas and what we want in a way that isn't compelling to them. Oh, and I just have to point out, because really I'm a sales trainer here, is that notice that Harvey made everything effortless and easy? His little proposal was in that suitcase, his toy is packed. He doesn't know what his competitive set is going to do, what maybe in the next enclosure they can sing and dance. He wasn't taking any chances, he made the next step easy. And that, by the way, is also another aspect of being persuasive. But there's more. It's not just revolving around the buyer or around the stakeholder or around the customer. It's truly, well, let's talk about it. This is what one of you wrote to me This is what you were hopeful that you would get from the SurveyMonkey link. How do I present to communicate the importance of changing our program and meeting and bringing in ways of implementing things to grow or retain attendance at our meetings? So you're halfway there because you knew that there was something in it for the other person, that you wanted to grow or retain attendance. But what does the persuadee have to feel? What does the other person have to feel to be able to open him or herself up to what you are trying to persuade them to? So this time, again into 22333, you've already put the keyword in. If you would text your answer, please. So just write in, what does the other person have to feel in that scenario you just looked at? What do they have to feel to be able to go along with you? To allow you to convince them, to persuade them. Okay, so they have to feel like they can trust you. That's absolutely true. Oh, Speaker Sue is the keyword. Let's see. They need to feel included and important. Yes, they do. Absolutely. And you heard that wonderful speaker this morning talking about that as well. We're seeing trust a lot. They need to feel authentically empowered. They do need to be open, and it's up to us to help them to be open. They need to... They may or may not really care where you're coming from, that's the truth. They do need to feel confident, and they absolutely, authentically need to feel valued. Yes, what they need to feel, what that other person needs to feel, is safe and smart going along with you. Safe and smart, yet they're not. What are they feeling when you're approaching them with change? Well, many times they're feeling confused. Hey, what's wrong with the status quo? It's been good. You know, let's just keep it the way it is. So they're feeling confused. Well, should I open myself up to this? Is this going to cause a problem for me? Could it cause a potential problem for my other stakeholders? They're feeling overwhelmed. There's so many choices. You're bringing one to them, but they have other choices. They're not an empty vessel that you're filling in. It's not like this is their first rodeo either. So often they're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling a great deal of pressure, but more than anything, they're feeling frightened. And ladies and gentlemen, I need you to remember this, that what they are feeling is terrified, and your job is to alleviate their fear. And to the extent that you can alleviate their fear is the extent in which you gain persuasiveness. So how do you do it? How do you help them to feel confident and comfortable? Well, this is a very, very easy strategy, or tactic actually, that every one of you can implement upon leaving here. And that is just begin with an authentic compliment or acknowledgement. So let's look back at that initial example, again, something that you wrote into me that you wanted to learn. So what could you say? What authentic words, what compliment, what acknowledgement can you begin with that's going to disarm the other person, that's going to help the other person feel at ease and feel open to what you have to say? So at your tables, please, I'm just going to give you maybe 90 seconds, it won't be more than that. And I want you, how might you open this conversation? You might actually begin with gratitude by saying thank you for seeing me, or thank you for your time. And then, and by the way, if I were making a presentation, I would not begin with thank you, even if it's to my board of directors or to my leaders. I'm going to go right for something that's going to be more compelling. They've heard thank yous, but what do we do? Thank you for allowing me here today. I'm so honored. Forget all of that. You're going to go for something stronger. And in this particular case, what I'm asking you to do is to go for an acknowledgement or a compliment that is authentic. So right now, please, working with each other, you have about 90 seconds. What might you say?
Your concern. Just tell me
She didn't make it. She has a chance.
I also feel like
the slide that she had right here or something that they want to get out. So I can appreciate your question. Give me a minute. Tell me what started with.
Okay, so even with the sketchy little bit of information that you have, and you only have a little bit of information, so with that, how could you open? What could you begin with that would be real and set the other person at ease, like you're not coming in like you know everything? So what might you say? Okay, right in front of me, Michelle, if you just want to book how to say it to sell it, let's hear it from Michelle, the volunteer. Thank you.
We said that if it's someone we know in the industry and they just had a conference, you could say, oh, I heard you had record numbers at your conference.
Excellent. And if that's the truth.
Right.
Yes, so that's all you need to do. Simply, that would be an authentic compliment. What we're not talking about is saying something like, what a great colored jacket. Oh, and you're tired. That's not what we're talking about. And I do need to just digress for a moment to talk about email. Fake anything stinks. So that means beginning an email with something like, how are you today? Really? If you really cared how I was, what would you do?
Pick up the phone.
Thank you. You would pick up the phone. Or the entire email might be about how I am, not just how. And the alternate of that is, I hope this email finds you well. Really? You probably do, because if I'm dead, we have no options. Or there's the Victorian option on I hope this finds you well, and that is I trust this email finds you well. I mean, all of these are ridiculous. So yesterday when we talked about this, somebody got all excited and said, yeah, well, what do you begin with? You begin with something that's relevant to them. Remember, everything circles, everything revolves around the other person. You don't need to come up with this fake default. Oh, and I have to tell you, Happy New Year. It's done. You had all the opportunity in the world, and now it's over. It's history. You can't begin that way either. So instead, you have to begin with something that matters to them. And in your case, as you just explained, it might be something like the word is out, you had record-breaking attendance at your ABC meeting. Or what else could it be? Anything that's authentic. For the salespeople in the room, and they're considering my hotel, it might be something like, you've made a great decision considering XYZ for your upcoming meeting. But it's something that's going to be an authentic compliment. And if there is any salesperson in this room who can't say, you've made a great decision considering my venue, my whatever, then I mean, it's real, right? They have made a great decision considering it. We begin with an authentic compliment or acknowledgement. So maybe it's something like the goals this board set, or the goals you set for your term are thoughtful and strategic, intended to move our association into a new period of growth. Or maybe it's something like the board has worked hard to create a strategic plan. Notice with this one, I was thinking I really didn't like all the ideas that they came up with, but they have worked hard, and that would be my truth. That would be an engagement that I could genuinely say and not feel slimy. Or maybe it's going to be something like the 2015 event you created was off the charts awesome, and you're going to go from there. But you want to disarm them. You want to help them to feel safe and smart and comfortable and confident with you by beginning with a truthful compliment or acknowledgement. And then move on to state your truth. So what could your truth be? Well, it's going to be what you know about your situation. So there, the beginning is what you already saw, and then current members, so the goals you set for your term are intended to move the association into a new period of growth, and retaining new members is key. Wouldn't that be true? Right? And then we're going to say another true statement. Current members are always looking for something new and shiny, yet comfortable. It's true, right? And the new members won't have the history of our existing members. Of course that's true. So it's the perfect opportunity to modify our meetings. And by the way, I did use the word modify. It's less scary than change. Just like the word agreement is less scary than contract. We want to keep people feeling comfortable. We want to keep people feeling safe. So let's see, exciting them about being a true part of our community and wowing our current members, retaining their passion for their association. And then I went on to the recommendation. However, what we want to do is not just dump So we are beginning positive with some acknowledgement or compliment. We're stating our truth, and then we're trying to collect yeses. So wherever we can, though not to an obnoxious level, what we want to do is say something like, the goals you set for your term are intended to move this association into a new period of growth, and retaining new members is key, right? Or wouldn't you agree? Or maybe in this case, would you agree? What I'm trying to do, because a body in action stays in action, there's a ton of neuroscience to back up the concept of when people start using the word yes, they continue using the word yes. And so we don't even have to wait for their response, because what we do by priming them, we're getting them into a yes mode. And by the way, you might even be shaking your head yes, because you're again encouraging them, you're giving them a signal about this yes. Now they may say no, and by the way, you want to be very careful about asking the question, would you agree, if you think the answer could be no. You never say, would you agree, unless you're at least 70% sure they're going to say yes. Now, is there anything about that first sentence that anybody would disagree with? I'm about 100% sure that they're going to agree with that. And so I'm just going to put it out there. I am going to prime them, because I know that I can be more persuasive if I do that. And then I might say again, current members are always looking for something new and shiny, aren't they? I'm asking questions. I'm posing the questions as I speak to them. Now, I would not be doing this in email, but I'm posing the questions to get them thinking in a positive manner. And new members won't have the history our existing members do, duh. But I'm not going to say duh. I'm going to say, you would agree with that, right? And then I might even look at the person who's my greatest adversary. Of course, if I do that, I'm going to look at them with a smile, because we're all in this together, and I've said nothing that they could disagree with. And then again, the word right is really overused these days. However, if you know that you need to work hard to collect your yeses, to get them to go along with you, then go ahead and use it. I would rather use the word right too often and collect my yeses than not get enough people in line with me. Okay, so we're collecting our yeses to help them to feel comfortable and confident. What else can we do? We want to use neuro-linguistic programming to help them to feel more confident with us. So how many of you are familiar with NLP already? NLP? Neuro-linguistic programming? Okay, so maybe 10 of you. So what this is, we won't do it subconsciously when we care about the other human being. When you go home to your family, if you like them, you will be doing this without thought. But there are people that we really have to put our heads into a space where we are aware that if we can match their behaviors, they're going to like us better. Have you ever noticed if you meet someone who has the same birthday as you have instant friendship, right? They're different tribes, but instant friendship. You don't even have to say anything. You come wearing the same dress or the same shirt. Instant friendship. Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to match behaviors. So that is that if you are talking with your hands, I'm going to be talking with my hands. Now, matching means that I'm going to be talking with the same hand as you, because again, you're going to feel this emotional bond. Mirroring means that I can talk with the opposite hand to mirror you. Interestingly, neuroscience gives us the same result, whether we match or we mirror. The challenge here is that we have to do it subtly. So if you just cross your legs, I can't instantly cross my leg because it's going to be fake. Only what I want to do is that I want to show you that we're aligned. The more that they can feel comfortable with you, the easier it is for you to be persuasive. Along with this, modulating your tone and your volume, your speed of talking. So I'm from New York. I'm sure that this was a huge surprise to you. Though I live in Arizona now, but I still talk really quickly. And so I'm aware that when I'm meeting someone from a different region or different culture, I have to slow down, or they're going to hate me at the beginning. And then, if you have any bonding between them, what happens is that they, for me, because I talk so quickly, is that they will begin to pick up their pace as I do. Now, if there's no bonding, they won't, and that's a signal to me. And by the way, this again comes back to all revolving around the other person. I have to be mindful, I have to be cognizant of what they're doing. So if they are not picking up their speed, I realize that I haven't connected with them yet. And so my husband, who's from the South, he speaks much more slowly than I do. And so my family, they will slow down. Actually, my mother hits the glass at the Thanksgiving table. Bill would like to speak. It's the truth. Okay, so one other thing about this, and this is true in email as well, use the same words that they use. Again, people like people who are like them. And these are very, very easy tips for you to implement to become more likable to them. So if I'm calling my meeting a congress, don't you dare call it a meeting. It's a congress. I don't care if you use the word congress 18 times. That's what it is. On the other hand, there are times when you can bring greater insight to the other person and you can elevate their conversation. So if someone is talking, for instance, about a partnership, well, if there is a financial stake on both parts, then that is true about a partnership. You might want to elevate that and see what their reaction is by talking about a collaboration. So you'd like to collaborate rather than partner with them, because collaboration brings you to a higher level. One other thing while we're talking about this, the difference between the words sorry and apology. So apology is a head word, sorry is a heart word. And what are we talking about this whole time? Creating emotional bonding with the other human being. So I'm going to encourage you, if you are sorry, to use the word sorry rather than I apologize or any variation of that. And that's true both in email and in conversation. So the first learning outcome then was to create emotional engagement. And what have we talked about to do that? About focusing on them, using words that provide a sense of safety, collecting yeses, and matching and mirroring behaviors. And in a fantasy world, you only need to do that to be persuasive. But we don't live in a fantasy world. We get pushback. We go back, and here's this scenario. You can read that. And that person says to you something like, really? How are you going to do that? Or maybe their smarmy response is something like, you're kidding, right? Or maybe their response is going to be something like, have you ever heard the expression, and if it ain't broke, don't break it? Okay, so for this to happen, by the way, for the other human being to respond to you like that, what do you think is going on in his or her head? So 22333, what typically motivates a negative or smarmy response like that? If you would text in your answer, please. So for someone to answer in such a negative or sarcastic or smarmy manner, what typically is going on? Okay, I love this. Absolutely true. They're feeling threatened. We have intimidated them. Please take that upon ourselves. We have intimidated them. That they don't feel, yes, yay, thank you, whoever wrote that. They don't feel safe and smart. They're terrified, and we have not created any safety. So it's shame on us. We again need to help them to feel comfortable by creating this emotional engagement. And what's the easiest thing that we can do? We can go to gratitude. We can thank them. So let's say that somebody says, really? How are you going to do that? So again, just a few seconds working with your partner, collaborating with your partner, because collaborating is much more fun than working. So collaborating with your partner, what could you say to ease this, to disarm them? So go ahead, please. You have a few seconds. What might you say? What could you be truly grateful for?
I think I might say, well, even if I can't, implement all of these ideas, that I can
Okay, so what might you be truly grateful for? What could you say that would be absolutely ethical? What could you say? Somebody yell it out, please. Okay, and thank you so much for saying it that way. Why did you ask that question? Because what you just said is what half of the group was thinking. And ladies and gentlemen, does that make me feel safe and smart? And so if you come to me, if you say, why did you ask that question, right away, well, I'm going to be more defensive. Right away I'm going to say, because I've been around here for 20 years, sweetie. Okay, sorry, what did you say? Oh, thank you so much for clarifying. So what you said was glad you asked that question. Now I'm going to speak about that too, because am I really? And so I need there to be total authenticity. For me, I would not be able to say, glad you asked that question. Now they did ask the question, and you are probably glad. For me, because they probably said it with the emphasis here in not a pleasant way, for me, and again, remember there were lots of right answers here, I would rather go for gratitude. So for me, I might say something like, thanks for asking. That's it. Now, it's not that much different from glad you asked that question, but I want to make them the highlight. Rather than, I'm glad you asked that question, I'm saying thank you for asking. Again, revolving around that other human being. And if they said, you're kidding, right? What would you say? 30 seconds working with each other, please. Because from the time that we're two, we say no all the time, because that's what we're taught. You know, we're running across the street, no is a really good word. Only we have internalized that, and no is often the first word that comes out of our mouths. What we want to do is stay away from that word, because it's like planting bricks into a wall. As soon as you say no, what does the other person do? They literally stop listening to you. They start rebutting. They start thinking about, what does she mean? What does he mean? What do you mean, no? I need you to elevate the conversation, because when you do justice to your brand, and you're much more persuasive. So instead of, no, I'm not kidding, because now you've become defensive, remember George Costanza, it's not them, it's us? What we want to do is, it's easy, easy, easy. Go to gratitude. I would say something again, like thanks for asking. And I mean it, oh my gosh, I so mean this. You're kidding, right? Thanks for asking. Actually, and by the way, the word actually, though again, this word can become a bit obnoxious, the word actually is a great replacement when you're learning not to use the word no. Because you'll be surprised how often no comes out of your mouth. Is it sunny out? No, it's raining. Why couldn't you have just said it's raining? If it is still raining. I once challenged a very large group of people to ask me anything and I wouldn't have to say no. Okay, somebody asked me something and that I would typically have to say no about.
Are you wearing purple?
I'm wearing blue. Thanks for asking.
Are you a man?
I'm a woman. Okay, once I had somebody yell out, and this is a really, and I set him up, so this wasn't as bad as it sounds, but I set the group up, ask me anything, I baited them, and this guy says, old, ugly man says to me, would you sleep with me? And I said, if I weren't happily married, you could be first on the list. Okay, so really we do need to be authentic, my answer to that sometimes, no. Only, however, we really want to go out of our way. So the word actually, or thanks for asking, as long as you can come from heart, as long as you can say it ethically, and even with this one, have you heard the expression, if it ain't broke, don't break it? I'm going to say something like, thanks for mentioning that. And you'll see where I'll go from there in a moment, because I want to do everything I can to help that other person feel comfortable in his or her own skin. I want to do everything that I can to help that person to feel safe and smart. So not only am I going to go to gratitude, I'm going to listen for points of agreement. Now, some of you have heard me, who've heard me speak before. How many of you have heard me speak before? And you've come back. Okay, good. So you may know this already. When we listen, you're looking at two black belt Aikidoists up there, because I have 2 yellow belts in the martial art of Aikido. Now, what 2 yellows means is nothing. Dojo before you can move to a real color. So if you grab me exactly right, if you grab me perfectly the way I've been trained, I can throw you. If you grab me any other way, you can just have your way. So what I've learned is that if I stand, and I learned more about communication skills from Aikido than all of my postgraduate work put together. If I stand my ground and you're my size or bigger, you just win. But if I can find it within my own self to let my ego go, to help you to be a hero, if I can just step back just slightly, I get to change your energy. I get to enable a better business conversation. So it's very easy, no, I take that back, it's not very easy, it takes a lot of practice, to listen for points of agreement. What I want you to be able to say with meaning, say with true heart, is something like, you're right and. Now, if you can't find anything that they're right about, then go with the word yes. Yes and move forward. This is not a picture of the man. This actually is a picture of a more polite man. When I was 24 years old, I was being interviewed by a major seminar company in New York City to do training seminars for them. So I was going to do, they wanted me to do 4 to 5 days, 2 weeks out of every month. So 1 week could be something like San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, Amarillo. And then I'd go home and I'd do the same program again in a couple of weeks. Okay, so I didn't realize that I was the first woman that they were interviewing. The men only had to go through 1 day of interviews, but because I was a woman, I had to go through 2. Everybody was very, very nice to me, though. Everyone was very kind. It's 4 o'clock, second day. I get ushered in to the head honcho's office. The guy who introduces me is lovely. He's saying all these nice things about me. I'm feeling really good, and I extend my hand to the head honcho, and he doesn't. How many of you ever had that happen? It is the worst, because now my hand is like out there, right? And now what do? It's something, right? And he had 1 chair in his office, right directly, I didn't die, so we're good. So right opposite him, I slithered into that chair, and he says to me, first, he crosses his feet on his desk, but not to the side, right in front of my face. So I am now looking at the soles of his shoes, and I'm not exaggerating this story 1 iota. And then he crosses his arms across his chest, and he says to me, I've been in business longer than you've been alive. What makes you think you could teach me anything? Well, today I would tell him what I could teach him. Manners. I have no idea what I said to that man. Only had I thought about, had I known about listening for points of agreement, it would have been easy. What did he say that with good heart, with full ethics, I could have agreed with? What did he say that I could have said, you're right and... Exactly. Now, I don't want to go with the old card. Not you're right, you're old. That would have been, but you're right, you have been in business longer than I've been alive, and here are the 3 things I believe I can bring to this organization. A sense of strength, a sense of confidence, and a sense of comfort to him because I disarmed him by saying something like, you're right. So if we look at our own example here, and if somebody says something like that, then my response is going to be something like, thanks for mentioning that. You're right, I have heard that expression. Or it might be, you're right, that is a common expression. Or you're right, a lot of people say that. and then we're going to move on. We're going to move on because we're going to take control with our truth. Every one of you has it to be persuasive, just you can't get sucked into whatever's going on in their lives. So we have about 5.5 minutes left, and in that Survey Monkey, survey, somebody said that what they needed to learn was how do I establish trust and respect from and for my 2 supervisors. So I want to tell you that what this is all about is a bad blood and a bad backstory. So what I mean by backstory is the ideas that what you put into your own head before you ever have a conversation. Because right now this person thinks that this conversation is going to be difficult, and it probably is because there's bad blood. But if we can help them to feel more comfortable, we're going to have a better conversation. How do you do that? Okay, so I'm flying between Phoenix and Chicago. Man behind me is kicking my seat, not tapping, gently, kicking. I'm becoming more and more upset with this man. Finally, he stops. I'm still angry with him. In fact, I'm so angry that I am thinking not just that he's a jerk, but I'm thinking that all of his ancestors are too. Finally, I begin to calm down, and don't you know that the kicking starts up again. Well, I'm not going to fly this way from Phoenix to Chicago, so I whip out of my seatbelt, and I'm standing over this man. No, I didn't shout, thank you, but I was a stranger, standing over a stranger. And I said to this man, excuse me, but I would appreciate it if you would stop kicking my seat. And he says, I would if I didn't have Parkinson's.
Oh, God.
Now, how did I come to that man with such anger and frustration? It was what I put into my own head. It was the fantasy or the nightmare or whatever I communicated with my own self. I didn't know that man from Adam. Now this person clearly has some broken commitments, some bad blood, some disappointments that have already gone down. I get that. And it takes practically a saint to implement these strategies in that circumstance. And here's my truth for you. What we've been talking about during this hour is it's the most selfless and the most selfish thing that you can do. Because if I can make them authentically, if I can find something to help them to feel like a hero, I'm going to be more persuasive, and that is my goal. So what is it that you're going to take away from this session? What is it? If you would take, I know that we only have 3 minutes left, so if you would, with your colleagues at your table, if you would come up with 5 things together among you that you're going to take from this session, practical tips that you can implement. Okay, so what is it that you're going to take away? Let's hear 6 of them. Real quick, please. Tell me, what are you going to take away? Yep, thank you. Okay, good. And specifically, how you're going to stay positive is that you're going to listen for points of agreement. When we listen for points of agreement, we hear 50% of what that other human being is saying. When we listen to rebut, we only hear 25%. So simply by listening for what you can agree with, you double the amount that you're hearing. Okay, good, and that's a very tangible way to stay more positive. Give me another one, please. What else are you going to take away? Yes, can you shout?
Be authentic.
Yes, thank you. If it doesn't feel right, you can't do it. If it's coming from a place of manipulation, then please don't do it. People can smell a rat a mile away. But if you can find a way to elevate them, if you can find a way to connect from your heart, you will be more persuasive. People get that energy. Okay, give me another one, please. What else can you take away? As specific as you can. Yes, way back. Say it again, please. Excellent. Thank you for remembering Jim Collins' sorry, to be more interested. It's always about them. So often someone asks us a question and we give them an autobiographical response. Or somebody says something happened to them and we start right away telling them about a similar experience. Now there is something to say about that from a neuroscience perspective, about bonding. But before you start telling them about your experience, ask more about theirs. So if somebody says, oh my suitcase got lost, and what's the first thing we do? Mine too, when I was right. Instead, this person is in pain. You want to elevate them. You want to lift up the conversation. Forget the autobiographical responses. If you want to be more persuasive, everything revolves around them. Okay, 2 more, please. 2 more. What else can you take away? Yes, thank you. Loud.
Stop saying no.
Thank you. No, I just want to clarify, thank you for that, that the sorriest I've ever been in my life is when I've said yes and I meant no. So it's not that I want you to do something you don't want to do. It's physically and literally not using that word no. Because when you do, you force the other person into being defensive. And that's certainly not going to enable us to be most persuasive. Okay, 1 more, please. 1 more?
Mirror email.
Thank you. So mirror their words in an email, that's true, and mirror their behaviors in communication. And everything we've talked about today is true about email. Everything that we talked about communications, you have to revolve around them, you have to love them. So please pick only 1 or 2 ideas that you're going to implement as a result of this session. If you try to implement more than 1 or 2 ideas from this, you're going to act bizarre, and you're not going to gain anything. Actually, early this morning when I was at the cloakroom line, somebody said to me, yeah, but how do you actually think about using these ideas? She had been in my session yesterday. And I said, start easy. Start with your colleagues. Start when mistakes aren't common. Because these are non-intuitive ideas to help you to be more persuasive. And when there's pressure on, it just isn't going to work for you unless you're accustomed to using these strategies. So remember, please, that this is how the other person is. They're terrified, and our job is to alleviate their pain and their fear. And the more that they can feel that, the easier it's going to be for us to be persuasive. It's up to us to take that high road every time, because when we do that, we get best results, we enable best results. So what it comes down to is keeping calm and carrying on. Thank you so much for your time here today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'll be here to answer questions.
Nice to meet you.
If you're interested, you can review the session. We will tweet the link. Bye.